up, friends, and welcome back to With Great People, the podcast for high-performance teams. I'm Richard Kasparowski. Our special guest today is Emily Bache. Now, this is cool for me. I'm a big fan of Emily and her work. This is actually our first time meeting each other, so I'm really excited about this. I know Emily through her work with coding katas, like the Gilded Rose. It's one of my favorite things to do. I do it a lot, actually. And through her books, like the Coding Dojo Handbook and Mocks, Fakes, and Stubs. I recommend these books very highly. I know Emily has a newer book out as well, and I hope to learn more about that while she's with us. To support this podcast, visit my website, kasparowski.com. Hey, Emily. How are you?
Hello.
Thanks so much for joining us.
It's really nice to be invited. Thank you.
My pleasure. What else could you add on to that intro?
Oh, I think you got most of it. I mean, you mentioned my new book.
Yeah, what about this new book? What's the title?
It's called Technical Agile Coaching with the Saman Method.
Okay.
And that's kind of what I've been doing for the past few years now, coaching using this method. And I've been writing this book over the past year or so, and really pleased that I actually got it finished and published in January.
All right, congratulations. And what is this method called again, and what is it?
So I decided the style of coaching that I'm doing needed a name to make it possible to discuss and search for on the internet and things. So I chose this word saman, which is a Swedish word because I live in Sweden. And saman is a word that basically means together. And I chose this name for it because a lot of the coaching work that I do involves ensemble working, whole team programming, mob programming. It's also known as ensemble working, is the way I like to describe it. And ensemble, of course, is a French word that means together.
Okay.
So it kind of made sense to me, at least.
Yeah. Well, cool. So this is a podcast about teams, and I like to ask people about the best team they've ever been on in their life. So how about you? Best team of your life? And this goes beyond work teams. Like I ask people this question sometimes that they think this is work. We're only talking about work here. But this is really like any group of two or more people. Before we started recording, we were talking about husband and family. This is any group of two or more people aligned with some shared goals. So what's your best one of those?
Right. So I was interpreting it as you gave me this beforehand that I should prepare to talk about a team, and I was thinking work teams, of course. And now I've realized actually I sing in a choir. It's a very good choir. But we haven't met for like a year practically, and sung together. So but it's amazing singing in a choir of people that is really singing well together. And I've been singing with this choir for 15 years, I think.
Wow.
But actually, I kind of prepared to talk about a different team, really.
Well, we can talk about any team you want, but I actually want to know more about this choir. So what is the music? Have you been doing anything in the last 12 or 13 months, not seeing each other face to face? Tell me more about the choir.
Well, it's a church choir. We're attached to Hagakyrkan in Gothenburg, which is one of the larger churches in the Church of Sweden. And it's a chamber choir. We're about 30 people, roughly. We sing quite a lot of Baroque music, quite a lot of Bach and other Baroque composers. But we also sing a lot of modern classical music because one of our choir members is a composer, and he composes very modern pieces with a lot of clusters and unusual harmonies, which is really fun as well. And then we just skip all the rest of the music tradition in between Baroque and like contemporary. We don't basically do any of that stuff. So
okay, so that's really cool. And the size of this group is interesting. It's 30 people. What is it like when you're talking about ensemble work? When I think about work teams, I'm thinking like approximately 5 people. This is way more than that. What's it like to work with a group this size, 30 people?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, we sing in sections. I mean, each section's about 8 people. 4 parts, or we often sing in 8 parts. In fact, more of the time we're singing in 8 parts, actually. And so then you get to know the other people singing your part very well. So there's that. But we most of the time we stand mixed, so that the people either side of you are not singing the same part as you. We find we get much better intonation when we're listening more carefully to the other parts. And when you're singing clusters, which is a cluster is where you have basically, if you think of a scale, it's got 8 notes, like C major, 8 notes. A cluster is basically when you kind of take from those 8 notes, you take like 6 or even 7 or even all 8, and in different octaves, and sing them at once. So it's like a chord with a huge number of notes in it. And you have to be completely accurate with your intonation. It's all unaccompanied, basically, what we do. Well, the Baroque music, often we have musicians, but all the modern stuff is basically unaccompanied. And the intonation that you have to use is the natural intonation, where you're singing pure fifths and pure thirds.
Right.
Not the tempered notes that you get on a piano.
I was going to ask about this because I'm a pianist, and when I sing, I'm singing to my piano or to my guitar. What's it like to sing to each other? I've never done it.
You just really have to be listening so hard to really hear when that, because the physics of it, when you get a perfect fifth, the wavelengths just completely align, and the fifths on a piano actually aren't perfect. So you have to learn to hear the difference between a perfect fifth and a piano fifth, and sing the perfect one. And then often this modern music, you're changing key. So you've got this cluster with a bunch of notes, and then suddenly the chord changes, and the role of you're maybe singing the same note as in the previous chord, but its role in the chord has changed. Maybe it's become the third, and then suddenly you have to pitch it again.
It's the same note, but it's different.
Yeah.
Can we keep talking about this group? I love this.
Okay.
All right. Okay, this is a group that you're active with. Have you been doing anything together without meeting face to face?
So last March we were just in the middle of rehearsing for the first performance of a new piece. The conductor had one of the choir members had composed, and we just stopped. And then after the summer, when we thought that the COVID rates were coming down a bit and things were looking all right, we tried again. We tried to start meeting, and half the choir at a time, socially distanced. And then somebody in the other half of the choir got COVID, and we all lost our nerve a bit, and it stopped again. So we haven't met or done anything, basically.
Yeah. This group, when you think about this group, if you could, we've been talking about the experience, some of the technical details of the group, these clusters and perfect harmonies versus tempered harmonies, which is actually really fascinating to me. You and I probably talk about the physics of this like all day. But when you're together with that group, when you're singing together, when you're making music together, what does it feel like to you? And could you summarize the way it feels with one word? What would that one word be?
Yeah, so when we're mid-performance singing something, it's intense concentration. That's really strong thing. Just the complete absorption in this sound, and this concentrating on what I'm supposed to be doing in my part.
Okay. Intense concentration and absorption. And what's that like?
Oh, and there's also the breathing part. So so you're completely focused in your mind and the concentrating and listening. But then there's also the breathing. There's an enormous amount of muscle control, getting that sound out. The amount of air that you have to control to make sure that you're getting all the muscles are in place, so that the air is coming out with the right pressure and the right intensity. I used to sing soprano up until a couple of years ago, and my voice is getting lower with my age, so when I've switched to alto. But particularly when I was singing soprano, there is so much muscle, just the physical act of getting those notes out at the right volume and pitch. That was a huge challenge. So there's, as well as all this intense mental concentration, there's your body is doing stuff you have to be in control of.
Oh, that's so cool. Now, how do you know this is such a great team, this group? Subjectively, what does it feel like? What else goes into how it feels? Or objectively, how do you know this is a great team? What could somebody else observe? That's what I think of when I say objective.
Right. So subjectively, of course, being part of this, you can feel the harmony, and you can hear the people around you, and you can hear when it's clicked. And the conductor as well, our conductor gives us great visual feedback, and when you're completely aligned with what she's directing us, and we are following her every move. That's a great feeling. But actually, our conductor, a lot of the time, she encourages us to take initiative, and sometimes she will actually kind of start us off and then just go and sit down. And then we have to rely on listening to one another and bouncing off cues in the rest of the choir to keep together. And that's really challenging, because often we just slow down and slow down and slow down. Just waiting for it. But it's a great exercise in having to pay attention to one another and not just the conductor. So subjectively, it feels really good when we actually achieve that and don't slow down too much and get to the end at the same time. And so that's really fun. But then there's the objective how we know it's a great team, great choir. So of course we do concerts and lots of people come. We also do concerts and services in the church. Local people come. We fill the church regularly, and then we sang in various choir competitions as well. So we sang in the European choir competition most recently, I think. Yeah, that was 2019, I think. Yeah, so summer 2019, we competed, and that competition was actually in Gothenburg, even though it was like a European competition, and they have various categories, and we competed in 2 categories, and we did very well. I think we were the highest placed Swedish choir, at least.
Oh, cool.
In our category of church music. And we've competed in the World Choir Games as well in Riga a few years ago. And they award you points, panel of judges give you points, and they give you feedback. And we won a gold medal, although that just means we got a certain number of points.
All right.
Yeah. And we came away from a competition in Limerick in Ireland with the Best Conductor Award. I remember our conductor. So, we compete quite a lot as well.
All right, this is cool. So there's definitely some objective metrics here, and it's metrics. Things we could observe about the team. You fill churches. You win awards. This is great. What are some of the concrete behaviors that go into this group being so good?
So one of the concrete behaviors is that everyone turns up, or at least almost everyone turns up for the practices. It's noticed if there's somebody missing, and there are certain people who have very high-powered jobs in the choir, and sometimes they're off on business or whatever, and that's difficult when they even missing 1 or even 2 rehearsals. That we noticed that. So that's one of the behaviors. Just consistently turning up is definitely a success factor for us. Putting a little bit of time in between rehearsals, although not everyone is so consistent about that. What else are the success behaviors? We have a great conductor who is a fantastic musician and is so patient with us. She doesn't shout at us. She's very careful to make sure nobody feels pointed out, as it were. So when she's giving us advice, it's always like there's something going on in that section or in that part of the room. She's not pointing out an individual, or she'll just take it again and again and until we get what it is she's trying to say that we're not doing yet. So it's always, so that thing in software about psychological safety in a team, that comes really from the top, from the leadership in this choir.
Okay. I was curious about this. I was thinking about the conductor. Is there an analog to a conductor in work groups?
Well, I guess it's the manager, but the manager doesn't direct at the level of detail that the conductor directs the choir. And they shouldn't. But she's listening to us all the time. She is so sharp. She can hear like one person doing the wrong thing in a choir of 30 people. And it's that's an amazing skill. And the way she handles it, as I say, not to make that one person feel like they're a failure. But you need to, yes, applying this to work groups. It's about feeling safe and the feeling that also somebody does notice what you're doing. Actually, I think isn't that a success factor in other teams, that somebody is actually noticing what you're doing in a good way in order to support you.
I love the sound of that. Nobody's said that to me before. That somebody's noticing what you're doing in a good way.
Yeah, she's really good at that.
That's fascinating to me because I've played music. I actually just picked up playing music again, or I picked up playing piano again during these last 12 or 13 months. And the joke is I literally picked up piano. Somebody left a digital piano out in their trash, and I picked it up and carried it home. And I've gotten quite good again after not really playing piano for like 30 years. I used to play with other people a lot, but it was like pop music, rock music, without a conductor. So it's really fascinating to me to hear about what it's like to play with a conductor. I totally know this experience of playing conductor-less and going slower and slower and slower.
Yes. I mean, she does it to make us listen to one another, because that's an important skill for a musician, of course, to bounce off the energy in the rest of the room and what's going on. And we don't improvise or make stuff up as we go along, as you do in more contemporary music. But I say contemporary music. This is contemporary music. It's just
it is.
a completely different sort.
Yeah.
We're singing what's on the page
Yeah.
rather than making it up. But still, we have to be able to respond to what the other musicians are doing.
Yeah. And another one of my guests who's a CEO, but also a musician, he was talking about the thing you mentioned about not just turning up, in my American English, I would say showing up, but putting in the time to learn your part, right? And he was telling me that it's really obvious when somebody hasn't learned their part.
Yeah, we do that. I mean, not everyone is I know for myself that there are some weeks where I haven't looked at my part in between the sessions. But I do, it does show. Yeah, you're right.
And I'm really familiar with this. I was actually in a sort of big band jazz ensemble when I was in high school. Actually, we had a conductor, now that I recall. And I was the best at not learning my part. I thought I could just improvise my way through it, but actually I wasn't good enough.
I mean, yeah, there is a skill to being able to read the notes off the page and sing them directly, sight reading. And I'm fairly good at that, which means I can bluff my way a little bit more than is actually healthy. I should be spending more time learning my part.
How about advice for listeners for whatever kind of team they're interested in? How could they take some of the success of this group, this team, and apply it to theirs?
Well, one of the things is that it's been together for so long. I mean, I've been in it for 15 years and I'm not the longest standing member. Although there are new people coming in, but the rate of change of people is slow enough that the culture is preserved. And the standard is very good. And I think that's partly because of the continuity. So I think that's a success factor, trying to get, and people stay, of course, where they are happy. So that, I mean, I'm in this choir because I'm still enjoying it and we're still singing new music, and it's still really fun and new, even though I've been doing it for so long. So it's that balance between continuity and but still trying new things, new challenges, new pieces of music that have never been sung, and there's no recording you can listen to. That's really fun. So trying to find it, make it challenging and keep people interested for the long term. That's been part of the success, definitely. And of course, there's also the social side of the choir. We go away, when we go to competition, it's we all travel somewhere, and we have dinner, and we go out and we have fun. So there's actually liking the people you're with as well. But there's still not a group that I see in any other context. We're not best buddies, as it were. So I think that's a prerequisite, but I think it's good that when you're together, you can enjoy each other's company. I feel I should say something more about software development, because I like, as a musician, I like all the analogies that with the ensemble working term that I'm using is trying to reference ensembles of musicians, and the same kind of feeling of joining a group of people who are creating something together, that are bouncing ideas off one another, that are supporting one another and at the right time, and staying quiet when it's not the right time. That whole dynamic of being in a musician ensemble comes up again when you're in a programming ensemble. I think that's one of the things I'm after by calling it that. And then there's this whole thing with code katas. You said at the start, I'm quite known for my code katas because I maintain the Gilded Rose kata, which is very popular.
I've known you for at least a decade through the code katas.
Yeah, and it's not the only one I've got on my GitHub page, but it's the one it's got like 1,000 times more attention and stars and all that. And it's a really fun exercise of test of skill, and in music you have that too. You have a piece of music that's there as a test of skill that is also fun to sing or play, and that you can use to help you to get to the next level. If you've got the piece that you're trying to sing that's pitched at just the right level to be just a little bit harder than what you've done before, but still possible, then you can, by practicing that, you can improve your level of singing. And we call that you can call that a study, or you could just call it a piece of music. And that's like the similar idea with the code kata, that you can, if you find one that's at the right kind of difficulty level, you can use it to improve your programming skills. So it's kind of a related concept to the idea of a code kata. It's just
I love that idea. I hadn't thought of katas like that. And it, this thing about music, and I've been studying piano lately. And I've been going through the traditional finger exercises from the 1800s. Each one is a little bit harder than the previous one. They're katas, basically. They didn't call them katas, but back then, they're finger katas.
Yeah. They call them studies sometimes.
Oh, yeah, this word studies. That would be like one of the next things I'm going to move on to, that I did when I was a teenager. I'm going to go back to the in my American accent. I don't know how to pronounce this stuff. The Chopin etudes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Etude is the word for study, right?
Yeah, it's the French, I think, for study. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there are some things that I want to learn, and they're just a little bit above where I am right now, but not so far that I couldn't do it.
Right. And that's the essence of deliberate practice, deliberately choosing the next exercise. So you can do that with software development too. And I go back to all of these code katas. I've got a large repertoire of them that I like to use. And what I'm doing at the moment actually is just learning new programming languages. I'm coaching a team that's using C. And I've never really done C, honestly. I've done C++ a bit, and I've, Java and Python and stuff, but C is another beast. So I'm kind of doing code katas in C at the moment.
Same. And because I was asking you for help with TypeScript, like Actually, when I want to learn a new language, programming language, I pick up the Gilded Rose kata and I do it in that language. And because there's already some code there that works, and then I learn how to do testing in that language and that platform, and then I learn more about the style of that language and platform, because the IDE tells me that this is bad style, and I make it better. And I can pick up enough about a new language to be able to do it with other people in an ensemble kind of way.
That sounds great. That's exactly the right kind of way to use a code kata. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super fun because I know the kata, but I don't know the language. It'd be like, I don't know, it'd be like learning the same piece of music on a new instrument, which I do sometimes, and then I know it better.
That's a good analogy, actually, learning it on a different instrument. Yeah.
Learning the same song on guitar, on piano, with voice, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, I play several instruments as well, but not very actively anymore. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I can see that.
So what else? Is there anything else you want to add? Any other projects you're working on that you want to share? Any more about this book and the Saman method?
Well, I was going to talk a bit more about coaching because technical agile coaching is what I do, coaching teams, helping them to apply agile practices, test-driven development, refactoring, legacy techniques for rescuing that situation. And as well as coaching teams directly, the other thing I've started doing recently is coaching other coaches. So I've got a couple of colleagues who are, they're very good software developers, and they've done some coaching and teaching, and now I'm kind of supporting them as they do more of coaching in the Saman method, really. So I'm thinking that there should be more coaches. That was one of my motivations for writing the book, that there is a lack of great technical coaching out there, as far as I can tell. And that could be because people don't know how to do it, or that it is even a thing. So I just wanted to mention that if you are a skilled software developer and you already know a lot of these skills, and you do code katas, and you're looking, well, what's the next step? Then maybe becoming a coach could be your next step. So I just wanted to mention that if you're that kind of person, please pick up my book or go to my website. I've got this website to support the book, which is called samancoaching.org. And there I've got a bunch of materials that you can use for yourself in your coaching work. Copy them. They're all Creative Commons, so you just have to credit me if you use them. And I'm hoping that this will encourage more people to do coaching and to do it well. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the idea.
Awesome. I love this idea. And I'm so curious now about the book. I'm gonna get the book and read through it. So you've got the website. This website again was...
Yeah, so samancoaching.org.
Okay.
You can maybe put it in the show notes.
We absolutely will. Yeah. And how else could listeners contact you if they want to get in touch?
So I'm on Twitter quite a lot. Just my name, @Emily Bache on Twitter. And I've also started a new Twitter account called Coaching Saman, which is more focused on the encouraging other coaches aspect. So that's a good place to get in touch with me. Send me a tweet, or I'm on GitHub as well.
It's github.com/Emily Bache, right?
Yes.
All right. See, I'm there a lot.
Glad to hear it.
So Emily, thank you again. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's really been a pleasure having you here, being able to chat, getting to know you a little bit. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
It's been my pleasure. And listeners and viewers, remember to support this podcast. Visit my website, kasparowski.com.